The American Visitor, Chapter 13. Superintendent Battle replaced the sheet with the slightly crestfallen air of a man whose best point had fallen flat. Anthony stood with his hands in his pockets, lost in thought. "So, that's what old Lollipop meant when he talked about other means," he murmured at last. "I beg your pardon, Mr. Cade?" "Nothing, Superintendent. Forgive my abstraction. You see, or rather my friend Jimmy McGrath, has been very neatly done out of £1,000. £1,000 is a nice sum of money," said Battle. "It isn't the £1,000 so much," said Anthony, "though I agree with you that it's a nice sum of money. It's being done that maddens me. I handed over that manuscript like a little woolly lamb. It hurts, Superintendent, indeed it hurts." The detective said nothing. "Well, well," said Anthony, "regrets are vain, and all may not yet be lost. I've only got to get a hold of dear old Stowpitch Reminiscence between now and next Wednesday, and all will be gas and gaiters." "Would you mind coming back to the council chamber, Mr. Cade? There's one little thing I want to point out to you." Back in the council chamber, the detective strode over at once for the middle window. "I've been thinking, Mr. Cade, this particular window is very stiff indeed. You might have been mistaken in thinking that it was fastened. It might just have stuck. I'm almost sure that you were mistaken." Anthony eyed him keenly. "And supposing that I say I'm quite sure I was not?" "Don't you think you could have been?" said Battle, looking at him very steadily. "Well, to oblige you, Superintendent, yes." Battle smiled in a satisfied fashion. "You're quick in the uptake, sir, and you'll have no objection to saying so. Careless like a suitable moment?" "None whatever. He paused as Battle gripped his arm. The superintendent was bent forward listening. Enjoying silence on Anthony with a gesture, he tiptoed noiselessly to the door and flung it suddenly open. On the threshold stood a tall man with black hair neatly parted in the middle, china blue eyes with a particularly innocent expression, and a large placid face. "Your pardon, gentlemen," he said in a slow drawling voice, with a pronounced transatlantic accent. "But is it permitted to inspect the scene of this crime? I take it that you are both gentlemen from Scotland Yard?" "I have not that honor," said Anthony. "But this gentleman in Superintendent Battle of Scotland Yard." "Is that so?" said the American gentleman, with a great appearance of interest. "Pleased to meet you, sir. My name is Hiram P. Fish, of New York City." "What was it you wanted to see, Mr. Fish?" asked the detective. The American walked gently into the room and looked with much interest at the dark patch on the floor. "I am interested in crime, Mr. Battle. It is one of my hobbies. I have contributed a monograph to one of our weekly periodicals on the subject, Degeneracy and the Criminal." As he spoke, his eyes went gently round the room, seeming to note everything in it. They rested just a shade longer on the window. "The body," said Superintendent Battle, stating a self-evident fact, "has been removed." "Surely," said Mr. Fish. His eyes went on to the paneled walls. "Some remarkable pictures in this room, gentlemen. A Holbein, 2 Van Dycks, and if I am not mistaken, a Velasquez. I am interested in pictures and likewise in first editions. It was to see his first editions that Lord Caterham was so kind as to invite down here." He sighed gently. "I guess that's all of now. It would show a proper feeling, I suppose, for the guests to return to town immediately?" "I'm afraid that can't be done, sir," said Superintendent Battle. "Nobody must leave the house until after the inquest." "Is that so? And when is the inquest?" "Maybe tomorrow, and may not be till Monday. We've got to arrange for the autopsy and see the coroner. "I get you," said Mr. Fish. "Under the circumstances, though, it will be a melancholy party." Battle led the way to the door. "We'd best get out of here," he said. "We're keeping it locked still." He waited for the other two to pass through and then turned the key and removed it. "I opine," said Mr. Fish, "that you are seeking for fingerprints?" "Maybe," said the superintendent. "I should say to that, on a night such as last night, an intruder would have left footprints on the hardwood floor. None inside, plenty outside." "Mine," explained Anthony. The innocent eyes of Mr. Fish swept over him. "Young man," he said, "you surprise me." They turned a corner and came out into the big wide hall, paneled like the council chamber in old oak, and with a wide gallery above it. Two other figures came into sight at the far end. "Aha!" said Mr. Fish, "our genial host." This was such a ludicrous description of Lord Caterham that Anthony had to turn his head away to conceal a smile. "And with him," continued the American, "is a lady whose name I did not catch last night, but she is bright. She is very bright." With Lord Caterham was Virginia Revel. Anthony had been anticipating this meeting all along. He had no idea how to act. He must leave it to Virginia. Although he had full confidence in her presence of mind, he had not the slightest idea what line she would take. He was not long left in doubt. "Why, it's Mr. Cade," said Virginia. She held out both hands to him. "So you found you could come down after all?" "My dear Mrs. Revel, I have no idea Mr. Cade was a friend of yours," said Lord Caterham. "He's a very old friend," said Virginia, smiling at Anthony with a mischievous glint in her eye. "I ran across him in London unexpectedly yesterday and told him I was coming down here." Anthony was quick to give her a pointer. "I explained to Mrs. Revel," he said, "that I had been forced to refuse your kind invitation, since it had really been extended to quite a different man, and I couldn't very well foist a perfect stranger on you under false pretenses." "Well, well, my dear fellow," said Lord Caterham, "that's all over and done with now. I'll send down to the cricketers for your bag." "It's very kind of you, Lord Caterham, but—" "Nonsense! Of course you must come to Chimneys. Horrible place the cricketers to stay in, I mean." "Of course you must come, Mr. Cade," said Virginia softly. Anthony realized the altered tone of his surroundings. Already Virginia had done much for him. He was no longer an ambiguous stranger. Her position was so assured and unassailable that anyone for whom she vouched was accepted as a master of course. He thought of the pistol in the tree at Burnham Beeches and smiled inwardly. "I'll send for your traps," said Lord Caterham to Anthony. "I suppose in the circumstances we can't have any shooting. A pity, but there it is, and I don't know what the devil to do with Isaac Tyne. It's all very unfortunate." The depressed peer sighed heavily. "That's settled then," said Virginia. "You can begin to be useful right away, Mr. Cade, and take me out on the lake. It's very peaceful there and far from crime and all that sort of thing. Isn't it awful for poor Lord Caterham having a murder done in his house? But it's George's fault, really. This is George's party, you know." "Ah," said Lord Caterham, "but I should never have listened to him." He assumed the air of a strong man betrayed by a single weakness. "One can't help listening to George," said Virginia. "He always holds you so that you can't get away. I'm thinking of patenting a detachable lapel." "I wish you would," chuckled her host. "I'm glad you're coming to us, Cade. I need support." "I appreciate your kindness very much, Lord Caterham," said Anthony, "especially when I'm such a suspicious character, but my staying here makes it easier for battle." "In what way, sir?" asked the superintendent. "It won't be so difficult to keep an eye on me," explained Anthony gently. And by the momentary flicker of the superintendent's eyelids, he knew that his shot had gone home.